Hey guys, welcome back to AZ Triumphster. Happy holidays, by the way. I hope you guys are enjoying the season and staying safe. So I said recently on another video that I owed you a 1,000-mile review on the 21 Fat Bob, and it's a little overdue at this point. I'm creeping up on about 1,300 miles now, but I think it's for the better because I've had an opportunity to get the break-in service done, which gets that break-in oil out of there, gets some fresh oil in. And any of you that have bought a brand new motorcycle and had it go through the break-in service, you may recall a bit of a difference in responsiveness, maybe, let's say, after that break-in service was done. And I would say that's similar to my experiences, and even with this one, so it gives me that chance to review it in that capacity and share that with you. So real quick, let's talk about what I had before I had this bike, and what kind of led me here. I had a 2019 Softail Slim. I had that for, I don't know, a couple of 2.5 years, something like that. I love that bike. The styling was perfect for me. I love vintage looks, classic looking motorcycles, very time period specific. And I hadn't actually really thought about trading it in until probably the last 4, 5, 6 months that I had the bike, because I've been hearing more and more, especially on YouTube, about this excessive crankcase pressure. And then from hearing that and looking into that further, vented, air cleaner, breather bolts, etc., came across the fact that the 2018-2019 model M8s had pretty poor oil pump, and then in 2020 Harley updated the oil pump, which improved the performance of that oil pump, etc. So knowing that, I looked into by VIN number, or at least what's on the motor, when the motor on my 19 Slim was produced, and it was in fact produced in late 2018, so it absolutely had the old oil pump. And although I did a vented tranny top cover, and that was helpful, and definitely I noticed a difference after doing that, it didn't change the fact that it still had an old oil pump, and that folks have said that under certain riding conditions and long-term use could prove to present some issues down the line. So I was conversing with a friend of mine who also happens to be the sales manager at Roadrunner Harley in Goodyear, and I had expressed, I guess in a way, jokingly, my concern about the old oil pump, and was like, I should probably just get a 21 Fat Bob, and that way I won't have any worries. And so he took that and ran with it, and eventually I got an incredible offer, at least as value for my Slim, and went ahead and traded it in. And I actually lowered my payment, and somehow my insurance went down. I can't explain that one, but it was too good to pass up. And the styling wise, because I had said that the Slim is more my style as far as vintage goes, certainly doesn't have much of a vintage look about it, but it is different, it is unique, and it is widely criticized, which I like because it's a challenge. It allows me to ride something that's different, that you would see less often than, say, a Lowrider S, for example, and get creative with customizing it, and maybe to a point that surprises people. And that's kind of what I'm going for. Of course, I'm going to do me on this. I'm not, really doing it for necessarily anyone else but me. But I think I'll capture some hearts along the way, hopefully. So, gosh, let's see. Forward controls, just as a general statement, for a 5'5" rider, really was something that I was concerned about. And when I had initially demoed the bike way back, 2018 or so, I felt like it wasn't a good fit for me. So I was apprehensive about it, but over the course of the few years, well, 2.5 years or so that I had the Slim, I learned a lot about interchangeable forward-mid controls, as well as working for Dean Speed and being a part of Dean Speed for so long, how easily you can change handlebars and cables, wires, etc. So I knew that getting the Fat Bob, having forward controls, swapping to mids was not going to be an issue, and then changing the bars, as you can tell, wasn't going to be an issue either. So from the factory, if you're a shorter rider, you're probably going to want to make those changes. Having drag bars with pretty short risers and forward controls, and it being a shorter rider, you feel like you're stretched out. The forwards weren't as bad as I thought. Certainly not as bad as riding a Sportster with forwards. So if you are, again, I'm 5'5", so if you're my height, maybe a little bit taller or taller from there, forwards, you're probably going to be just fine. You probably won't feel overly compelled to change your controls to mids. I have a theme I'm going for with this thing, so having the mids, I love them. I've heard and understand that they're in a different position than factory mids, say like on a lowrider S or a Street Bob. And then changing the handlebars too. These are 8-inch rise, and as you can tell, they have rise in the, pullback in the risers as well as pullback in the bars. So I actually sit pretty upright, and that's a unique riding position for me, because most of the bikes I've ridden with the bars have been pulled, not overly pulled forward, but pulled forward in the sense of it's more an aggressive, grungy look, where this is pulled back and I'm sitting more upright. I don't have as much pressure or stress on my throttle wrist, so it's different, but aggressive nonetheless, because having that sort of upright sport standard riding position with the mids and those MX sort of riser MX bars, the bike feels very nimble. And on that note, I would say, handling perspective, this bike is a performer, absolutely. I mean, you've got your inverted front forks, you've got your dual front brakes, and you've got a monoshock, which is, you know, obviously M8 territory, but my understanding is that this monoshock is actually longer, taller than the factory one on, say, a lowrider S, and I believe even a Sport Glide. So already you've got a different geometry that's more conducive of aggressive handling, quicker turn-in, stuff like that. Plus you have the remote preload adjuster, which I actually used on the fly, because after changing to a Saddleman seat, realized that a lot of the give that I was feeling was in the factory seat, not in the shock. The profile of the rear tire is different than your Slim and your Street Bob. Whereas with my Slim, and even on the Street Bob, I noticed that at higher speeds, it felt a little more planted, a little more sturdy, a little more stable. It's not that this is necessarily unstable. I believe that the contact patch is different, where it has more rounded tire carcass, so it's a lot more readily available, more ready to make a split-second move, left, right, quick, sort of switchback sort of maneuvers. It's different because at the higher speeds, even though it's very you know, sturdy, I mean, it feels like a 650-pound bike with a heap of torque, but a little twitchy. When you start to slow down and, you know, you hit that left turn just right, or whatever the case is, or you're going through some twisties, this bike really shines. It does need some suspension upgrades. The rear shock will suffice. I mean, I weigh like 155 pounds, so the rear shock, as far as supporting my weight, will suffice. The front has a lot of dive. Under heavy braking, it has a lot of dive. Changing the fork fluid would be beneficial, but I believe it needs better progressive front springs, and I've heard that it could really benefit from some better brakes. I think that there's two sides of that coin. I think that you don't really know what your brakes are capable of until you get your suspension dialed in, and whether that's just making adjustments, say you have a sport bike and you adjust preload, compression, rebound, and all of a sudden, wow, the thing brakes more beautifully than it did. You know, you don't really know what your current brake setup is until you get your suspension dialed in, which is the approach I'm going to take with this one. The 114 versus the 107, geez, night and day. The epiphany occurred because I was fine. My 107 was fine. The power delivery was pretty distinct. Torquey until about 3,500, 4,000 RPMs, and it felt like it just kind of tapered and leveled out. Not a whole lot of horsepower, but definitely a lot of low-end punch on the 107. And the epiphany occurred when I rode my Slim to Dean Speed to demo with our new mufflers on the new 2022 Chief with a 111. I did so in sport mode, and the power delivery was quite different. And the only thing done to that bike was slip-ons. On my Slim, I had an air cleaner, a tuner, and slip-ons, whereas with the Chief, all I had was slip-ons and the catalytic converters in the head pipe. So I was skeptical, to say the least, and I took this Chief out, and the 111 in sport mode had a relentless power delivery. It was just, it pulled through and through to shift, and then boom, it started over just all the way through. It was very impressive. And then I came back, just took the footage, you know, in my side bag, jumped on my Slim, and rode home, and immediately was reminded of the difference in power, the difference in power delivery, and it planted the seed. So now I have a 114, and it's a fun power output, power delivery, power response. It definitely has plenty of low end, we already know that, but it pulls much better at the top end. I would still say that the way the power is presented in both bike differs greatly. Plus you have riding modes on the Chief. But this is a blast. It's such a blast. It needs mufflers. For gosh sake, look at these things. By the way, speaking of catalytic converter in the head pipe, this, as far as I know, it is the only M8 that I can think of. I'm sorry, Softail M8 that has the catalytic converter in the head pipe. Thank you, Harley. My Slim didn't, the Street Bob didn't, the Standard certainly doesn't, the Lowrider S, as far as I know, does not. So this one does, and I've heard this bike with slip-ons, a variety of different slip-ons, and it doesn't change. I've drilled out the baffles here, and with aftermarket slip-ons, because of the cat in the head pipe, it doesn't change much. It really needs a full system and a tune. I've already got the stage 1 air cleaner. So here's a crazy thing. That air cleaner, surprisingly, is stage 1 territory. All I did was put a high flow filter, drop in high flow filter in it with the foam element, and it's pretty much a stage 1 air cleaner. So that's cool. You get your money's worth with some of these things. You got the performance suspension, you get the 114, you have practically a stage 1 air cleaner with shy of a $60 filter element. So I did that filter element, drilled out the baffles here, and then went and got a stage 1 tuner and did just the quick generic map download. After I get some slip-ons on this, I will do the smart tune. But it's interesting because on my Slim, I don't recall having made those small changes and noticing as much of a difference as I've noticed with this. Drilling out the baffles, not so much, but the air filter, I did that, rode it for a couple of days, and I noticed a little more responsiveness. I did the tune, and the power band changed. 3500, it comes alive and pulls now from there to redline. So it's really cool. The fuel tank capacity is certainly, I get why they did it styling wise. It makes sense front to back, top to bottom. This smaller fuel tank certainly fits the genre, I guess, if there were one, of this motorcycle. Where it doesn't fit is versatility. I went from a 5-gallon gas tank on my Slim to this one, so it's lacking. I look at gas tanks like what's on the Lowrider S, and I think, wow, that would be a good fit. It would still look good, and who knows, maybe something I'd do in the future. But it's a lot to do. Wouldn't it be nice to just have even just a little bit more fuel capacity from the factory on this thing? So definitely not a fan of that. But man, I mean, a few folks have asked, do I regret trading my Slim? Do I miss it? Stuff like that. I mean, the styling of the Slim was beautiful. The color I had, the billiard blue, was gorgeous. I miss those things, but I have such a fun time, such a blast riding this thing, and I'm so excited about what I'm gonna do to it, that I don't really think about the Slim. I think about how much fun this thing is and the next thing I can do to it. The Custom Dynamics integrated LED tail light with the center located license plate bracket. I already put a profiler seat on it after having tried the step up seat. Got handlebars, did some of the performance upgrades. I may do a shock extension and lift the rear a little bit. There's a little bit of adjustability up here. I can slide the front end up about maybe 1/4 of an inch, change the handling geometry there. All in all, guys, this has been a fun bike so far, 1,300 or so miles of it, and I'm looking forward to every mile going forward. And I have some plans for it that I'm actually working on right now. Is why the cowl's not on there, why you see number plates. So more to come with that. Gosh, I feel like I covered so much, but I feel like there's probably some stuff I'm forgetting. So leave a comment if you want to know more. You know, maybe it'll warrant another video. This one's certainly been long enough, but if you've hung out this far, thanks so much. Go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, because there is definitely more to come with this thing. I have a list of things that I'm accumulating that I have every intent of doing, and I think it'll interest you guys. So again, happy holidays. Thanks again, guys, for being a part of this channel. It's been an interesting year with some good stuff, and looking forward to 2022. So just do your best to stay safe, and I'll see you guys on the next one.